I want to talk about that story, which is a little bit personal. I need to talk about it because I know that someone can learn from it. I know that some young person who's aspiring to become a leader will maybe stumble upon this video and it will help them. So I'm doing this. I was in my early 20s when I got my first leadership role. And when I found out from my boss that I was going to replace our team lead who left for a different job, it felt like very natural to me. And as a first-time leader, it's also natural to feel a little bit intimidated. Suddenly, you're no longer just responsible for yourself. Suddenly, you have a bigger influence on your teammates, on other people. And then that can sound scary. As a first-time leader, I guess there's also a certain kind of pride. You feel that you're being entrusted with a bigger responsibility, a bigger role. So I remember it's pretty silly because I was really, really young. I just remember obsessing about how my desk is going to look like. And I know that sounds so shallow, but we see that in the movies all the time. Like that scene when you enter your new office and then you try to fill your desk and then you put your things and then you arrange your stuff on your desk. And now thinking, oh no, okay, this is a big thing for me. It makes you really think a lot about what you're capable of. You go through a lot of introspection. You go through a lot of questioning about your own abilities, about your own capabilities, about your own skills. Am I ready for this? Or can I do this job? Or do I have the technical skills? Am I going to be the smartest one in the room? Are people going to be expecting that I have the answers for everything? And what if we get into a difficult situation? Can I get out of it? And you know what? That can get to you. And I think this is one pitfall that you should watch out for if you are a new leader. It's natural that you think about these things, that you think a lot about yourself. We all have our own little introspection all the time. But what really made it maybe a little bit more fun is the fact that I not only focus so much on myself and what I can do, but I actually really love getting to know my teammates and understanding them both on the professional context and then also to a certain degree personal context. You know, what are they good at? And also what are their weaknesses? It's better to understand your teammates first and foremost, and then place yourself in the center of that later on. My challenge back then was that it was a small team. It's not a big enterprise. So that means resources for upskilling was pretty limited. And at that time, 20 years ago, yes, of course, there's internet, but it's nothing like what we have now. I remember we couldn't just go to a leadership training because that was expensive. So I didn't really know where to find resources or how to learn to be a leader. If I had been through formal education, would that have made me a better leader? I think it would have given me the right tools. If I had a formal education about leadership and about people management at that time, perhaps I would have been more organized. No, but of course, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from experience, and then you learn from talking to your fellow leaders. But a lot of it, like I said, was based on common sense and instinct. People management is about building trust and relationship. That comes from a place of sincerity. That should come from a place of integrity. That should come from a place of genuine care. And that's not something you can put in a tool. Like any other role, leadership is filled with ups and downs. And I'm sure that you already know that it's not going to be easy. And you need to prepare for that. One of the toughest things a leader has to do is leading through hard times. And hard times can be very subjective. And as a first-time leader, you probably have not built the stamina yet to stay calm, to be objective when things get hard. We've been told that we should never take our private lives to work. If you're a leader, you're sort of trained by, I don't know, the system or the structure that you should never let your private life spill into your work life. And that is extremely, extremely hard to do. Because at the end of the day, we are all just ordinary people who goes to work, do our jobs, lead, and then go back to our private lives and also face those difficulties outside work. Face difficulties with our relationships, with our families. And if you're being told that you should never let that influence you whatsoever in your leadership, then that's terribly hard to do. And if you have to be a leader to a person who is going through a lot of difficulty, who's been having a hard time in their personal lives, then you as a leader have to balance it out with empathy and being there for that person as a human being, and then understanding that and do what I have to do for the business. And so when I first became a leader, I was also going through a lot of big stuff in my own life. So I had my 2 kids, so I'm raising 2 small children at that time. So motherhood has been, of course, both wonderful. I don't have the words for that, but also extremely challenging, as probably all of you already know. And that I have to go through that while I'm also still trying to find my way in becoming a good leader. At the same time, I had to go through also a very difficult separation. During that period, as a first-time team lead, that's also the time when I've had anxiety. I've been in the hospital several times, getting anxiety attacks. So it's just been one of the hardest times in my 20s, I would say. And leading during these times is not something that you can find in any leadership books. I ended up quitting my job and eventually moving to a different country. It was probably quite a difficult experience, not just for me, but also for my team, because we were working so well. We were such a good team. We had goals, we had plans, and we really love each other. We love working together. It was just, I was young and extremely immature. In retrospect, I think it's because it was just very emotionally loaded. One of the most difficult things to learn is learning how to manage human emotions, whether it's your own emotion or other people's emotion, other people that you have a profound impact on as a leader. That requires a lot of empathy, a lot of emotional intelligence. And how do you build that? How do you become that person who knows exactly how to handle things the right way when everything else seems like it's falling apart? It affects you in such a negative way. I just left. I didn't handle it so well. I didn't organize the tasks so well, the transitioning. And it's also extremely selfish of me. But what do I know? And that's why I was telling this story. If you are a first-time leader, I would like you to focus on building your emotional maturity. I don't have a formula for that, honestly. You need to find your own way of doing that. But before you open any leadership textbook, my advice for you as a first-time leader is to check in with your own emotion, or to learn how to check in with your emotion and then learn the ability to make logical and sound solutions no matter what your emotional state is. You can still acknowledge your emotional state. If you go to work and you need to lead people and you're sad about something, it's okay to be sad, and you can go out and tell people, you know what, I'm going through something in my life right now, and that's okay. But when you acknowledge it, make sure that you also handle it well, that you don't let your emotional state influence your decision making. You will also start to take part on your teammates' emotional state. You have to accept that. That's part of the job. Acknowledge and take that into consideration, and then put that together with logic, with data, with circumstances, and then still make decisions for them. You need to balance out what's good for the business in the long run, that would also be in return good for your teammates, the people working for it. When I had to quit my job at that time and decided to move to a different country, like I mentioned, it wasn't such a good transition. And that was a mistake from my part. And I know that it impacted a lot of people. This is also something that you have to think about, I think, day one, that you are not always gonna have this role. It's just business, it's just work. One day, you're gonna have to do something else. You're not gonna be the leader, the manager of this team forever. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, I mean, you don't want to think about quitting already on the first day. But what I mean is that there are some things that you can do well, and you would do yourself a big favor and your teammates a favor. You would be extremely valuable for the company if you're working for, if you already know that you have a limited time in this role. Because of that, there are certain things that you can do and that you need to do. Make it a goal to build a self-managing team. And you can do that by thinking about processes all the time, thinking about quality, thinking about collaboration. Help build the system, the process, and the culture within your team and within the company. And that's going to be really helpful. I know I said a lot of things about how challenging leadership is, but that doesn't mean that, you cannot have fun. I think in my experience, the best part about being a leader, especially being a new leader, is being able to make an impact, but most of all, being able to use your time to establish a genuine relationship with other people, with your colleagues, and seeing them for who they are, understanding their strengths, understanding their weaknesses, understanding their emotional state. You can together work through that. Work together for you guys to achieve your goals. That kind of experience is very rewarding. To be able to do that, to be able to have the chance to do that at least once in your life, is really rewarding. So I want you to think about that as well, not just the challenges and the difficulties, but actually the rewards of being a leader, and to remember to always celebrate that, and to celebrate that with the people you work with. Don't ever forget that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you learned something that will help you through your leadership journey.